Okay, good morning everyone. I'm Peter Livingstone, the co-founder and director of Eadha Enterprises. So before I start, I'm going to show you a couple of visuals. First one, flood costs to Renfrewshire from one single river. To every 10 years, £20 million worth of flood damage by the black cart. That's only going to increase, of course, with climate change. Secondly, we're also, remember, facing a biodiversity crisis simultaneously. All the species you see there have been lost from Renfrewshire, some historically, some over the last maybe 10, 20 years. And of course, as touched on in the last talk, you could also add to that a mental health crisis or a cost of living crisis. And of course, it's important to understand that there's really complex interactions with all these things, and often solutions to one will be a solution to another. So we were founded and funded back in 2010-11 by Oxfam. We were constituted as a social enterprise, working very closely with Engage Renfrewshire at the start to help us get going. So Eadha is the old Gaelic name for aspen. We recognised at the time that aspen's the rarest tree in Renfrewshire, only 5 left. But we also recognised the amazing potential of aspen, its unique properties to address some of these challenges. So we spent the next few years collecting all the surviving aspen we could find in Renfrewshire, and then wider right across Scotland. We got funding from the Forestry Commission to survey and collect every single surviving tree from the Galloway coast up to Arran. We found 80, and then wider across the country. Aspen rarely produces seed, so we then had to basically clone these trees in a specialist lab, and then through the partnership with the Forestry Commission create a supply chain for the aspen tree. The next step was then to create our own little specialist nursery. We eventually, after many years and hurdles, established a site at Dargavel village. And that's become quite successful. We've branched out, excuse the pun, and also grow a number of other species, trees and wildflowers. We've promoted the use of aspen as the sort of pioneer tree species, the sort of iconic tree that could really transform how land is managed and how forestry is practiced. It supports more biodiversity than any other tree species. It's, it can tolerate really poor conditions. It's fast growing, really good timber properties, and yet this tree was never grown by nurseries, and was pretty much dying out in Scotland. So after 10 years of work, we celebrated 1 million aspens being planted in the countryside, and we planted the 1,000th tree in Dargavel village. We got the local MP along, a big celebration. We then went ahead and created a kind of rewilding initiative called Yearnstein, which is focused on the sort of Renfrewshire Heights. We got funding from the big hitters at the bottom there, Rewild Britain, Woodland Trust, John Muir Trust, and then that stimulated other interest bodies and groups getting involved. So the Lochwinnoch Community Development Trust spawned the Tandlemere project. It was very exciting, looking at an asset transfer of Renfrewshire Council land on the hill, taking this sort of core area, obviously focused on Clydemuirshiel and the sort of upland areas. And of course, learning from across the country. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel. They're fantastic projects. I've got a lot of mileage already. Borders Forest Trust, very similar landscape. Denuded hills, historically deforested. They have rewilded Carafran. I strongly recommend you visiting that if you haven't already. It's one of the exemplar rewilding sites. Peatland restoration was mentioned, that's in hand just now. And right to the top of the hill, we can learn and look across not only Scotland, but elsewhere in the world. In Norway, where they've got much better, more sustainable land management and more local control. It's about a resilient landscape that can also be used as a local resource. So we've started that process. We've worked with Clydemuirshiel, we've planted junipers and other rare threatened species right down the catchment to the lower lying areas. Riverbanks, riparian woodlands is fundamental. That is going to be the solution to a lot of issues. Focusing tree planting where it's important and can deliver the maximum benefits. Rewilding land generally. This is a former conifer plantation at Kilmacombe. It was felled and the landowner decided didn't want to replace just with more Sitka spruce, so we've gone in, planted native species. But it's also a buffer to Glen Moss Nature Reserve, so we're expanding out these small islands of conservation. We need a joined up, connected ecosystems to make them more resilient. If we can cover the hills in aspen rather than Sitka spruce, as is the case, for example, in North America and Scandinavia, what a beautiful landscape we can have. And it's all about localizing tree supply, so engaging and mobilising people to go out, collect seed forests so we can grow locally genetically adapted trees in our nursery. And we should have a network of these right across. Slowly but surely there are more nurseries sort of springing up to do this. So we are rewilding woodlands, plantations, planted woodlands. For example, here at Locher Wood, a community woodland just outside Lochwinnoch. So we're removing tons of plastic that have just been left in the trees, tree tubes. You see them all over the landscape, bringing them off. We've got funding from Mossy Earth to do this. We're planting ground flora and native wildflowers amongst in the undergrowth to re-establish these species, to make a more resilient landscape. We're losing all our ash trees across Renfrewshire, pretty much decimated. Larch is being felled. There's diseases affecting oak. All of this is due to and enhanced by climate change. Replacing all their ash trees with aspen is a really good replacement. So we're looking at agroforestry, bringing trees, integrating them with sustainable agriculture can provide fantastic benefit. And it's all about bringing as many people from different walks of life on board. Minority groups, asylum seekers are brilliant. They've been out with us a number of times. Now we're starting to engage with other groups across Renfrewshire, like the STAR project, which is fantastic, and we really want to just reach out, trying to inspire the next generation to take action. You can't start too young, so there we go. Thanks.